Hello and welcome to another Pastors in Recovery podcast. Glad you could join us today. And today's topic is burnout and exhaustion and how to rest. So the question for us here today is, are we overwhelmed with our busyness? Are we finding our identity in our success as a pastor? This podcast is going to sound like preaching to the choir, but we all know there is a certain perspective to this today. And today we're talking about recovery. And so I want to jump right into that. I don't know if you've read Hosanna Wong's book, You're More Than You've Been Told, but there's some really good information in there about how we find our identity, how we find our worth, and how we find our value in what we do. One of the worst fears, she says, was not doing as much as I could do or as well as I could do it. It's almost like she was, feeling like if she doesn't do as much as she can, as quickly as possible, packing her schedule, 365 a year, barely getting sleep, traveling, then she wasn't pleasing God. And she wasn't living up to her own potential. But the truth is, that is a complete lie. Nobody can sustain that. So she also mentions author Wayne Miller, who says, busyness and achievements have become the ultimate goal and status symbol of our time. He says, quote, the busier we are, the more important we seem to ourselves and we imagine to others. To be unavailable to our friends and family, to be unavailable to find time for the sunset, to whiz through the obligations without time for a single mindful breath, this has become a model of a successful life. Well, is it really the model of successful life? Are we empty inside? Are we miserable? Are we so busy that we really don't even have time to make sure that we're okay, that we're healthy, not just physically, but in our hearts and in our minds? So here's the fact. Our identity should not be in our busyness. Our identity isn't in our titles, right? But it's also not in our weakness or addictions. Where's our identity? Well, our identity is in Christ. You know that you're a child of God. You know that you are His precious creation. Yet we find ourselves thinking otherwise. We think, wow, we got to have that title. We got to have that parking spot. We got to have that recognition. We got to have that applause when people, say, good job, Pastor. That was a good sermon. Or like with me, oh my goodness, when I would preach and I thought it was a really good sermon, my, wife was there, and I'd often look at her while I was preaching and thinking, I wonder if she thinks I'm doing a good job. And so whenever I preached what I thought was a great sermon, I would ask her, I say, hey, what'd you think of that sermon today? And she would begin to critique me. And that really kind of was a blow to my self-esteem. It was a blow to my ego, I guess. When I didn't feel like I had preached very well, I wouldn't even ask her because I thought, well, I think it was terrible. Obviously, she thinks it was terrible. But yet, I just craved that praise from her. Like, oh, that was a great sermon, husband. Man, you're an amazing pastor. You're an amazing preacher. You're an amazing orator, amazing speaker. You should be on radio. You should be the next Billy Graham, that kind of thing. And, that's never going to happen. God put her in my life to help me become better. Another area that is obviously the elephant in the room, and I guess I like to use that phrase. The elephant in the room is social media. Oh my goodness. I used to have so many people as my Facebook friends that I finally had to remove. And it wasn't because of anything about them personally, although I took it personally. But it was more like I couldn't read their posts because they just triggered me. They made me feel so inferior. And then I'd try to one-up them with, hey, yeah, look at my perfect life. Look at my beautiful wife. Look at my family. Look what we're doing. Look at the sacrifices I'm making for ministry. Look how busy I am. I'm so busy. Look at me. I never rest. Look at me. I never go on vacation. Look at me. Look at me. And I just got, nauseous. It became toxic. So I began to remove them, not because I didn't think, not because I thought they were bad people. I mean, they're great people. It's just that there's just so much boasting going on, and there's so much, whether we intend to boast or not, maybe we're just sharing our great times with our friends and our family and stuff, and that's nothing wrong with that, but maybe it's all me. maybe I'm the one with the problem, Maybe I look at them and I'm just jealous, or maybe I look at them and I'm just having a hard time to deal with it. But at the end of the day, do we really need to play that game? Do we really need that? So that's a whole nother topic. What is social media really good for? But I'm not going to talk about that. That's not the topic of today's podcast. So let's get right into, let's talk about Jesus, because we know that he was the ultimate example of this whole rest thing. We know that Jesus took time to rest, right? Why did Jesus take time to rest? Let's look at four quick reasons. Number one, Jesus rested for physical and emotional renewal. After intense periods of ministry, such as healing, teaching, and facing opposition, what did he do? He retreated, he rested, and he prayed, like in Mark 6:31. And then there's the second reason is to connect with the Father. He needed to connect with the Father because, he said that, what he does is all about what the Father is doing. And so he needed to spend that time with the Father. Third reason was he would set an example for us. He wanted to show us that we need to get away from the crowds. We need to rest. That is an essential component, if you will, of our living a healthy and fruitful life. That we are not meant to work constantly without taking time to refresh our minds, bodies, and spirits. And then finally, the fourth reason is reflection and preparation. Jesus rested to look at his mission, to prepare for his future ministry. He took those moments of rest so he could consider the next steps in his work and seek guidance from the Father. And look, here's the thing. I know, like for me, if I don't get into worship, and which is really when God speaks to me the most, if I don't spend that time, then I never get what God is speaking to me. My brain is just, there's too much going on up there. It's just like spinning, loud noise. And if I don't quiet my spirit and take time to listen, I can't hear the Lord. I can't hear him speak to me. I can't hear what God is saying to me, and like when I'm going through my time of prayer for my family and other things. While I'm doing that prayer, then God says, oh, this is what I want you to do in that situation, or this is what I want you to know, or this is what I want you to think or understand. So if we don't slow down, if we don't take that time to slow down like Jesus did, we'll never be able to reflect and prepare. We're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back with this podcast. Are you looking for a safe place where you can talk to other pastors with full anonymity and confidentiality? Celebrate Pastors in Recovery is just that place. In a Celebrate Recovery group, you'll be working with other pastors going through the 4 books of Celebrate Recovery Step Study series. Each pastor will be in the exact same place you're in, giving themselves wholeheartedly to this. When you join a group, you're going to know that you're going to be able to talk to other pastors who can relate through the different things that you go through in your life. I am confident by you joining a CPR group today, you will be able to find freedom from your hurts, your hang-ups, and your habits. Think about it. Where in this world can you take time to actually spend with other people where you can completely open up and share those deep things that you've never been able to share before? This is that kind of place. So I encourage you to sign up. Go to cpr.celebraterecovery.com. cpr.celebraterecovery.com. All right, we're back, and we're going to continue now with this whole idea of taking that rest. So what is the bottom line here? The bottom line is, by taking time to rest, Jesus teaches us that resting is not a sign of weakness, but get this. Yes, it's an acknowledgement of our dependence on God for strength and renewal. We need to rest on God. And I know you know this. I know we all know this as pastors, but do we? Do we get so busy that we just don't take that time? A great evangelist once said that as God was just blessing his ministry, he said, I don't even really need to take time to pray anymore, because I'm just get this connection with God all the time. It's this download. And, and that kind of freaked me out. It kind of worried me, because I'm like, okay, you don't need to pray? That's a slippery slope going somewhere, and it ain't something good. Jesus rested as an example to us, but also because he was human. When Jesus was on earth, he was human, and he needed to put his head down on a pillow or whatever, just like you and I do every night, and get that sleep. not 4 hours of sleep, not, hey, I can live off of 4 hours of sleep. Good for you, man. Or all I need to do is just make sure I stay caffeinated all day. Those Red Bulls really help. Great, but is that helping your health? I mean, what's your brain having to deal with that, right? Okay, I drink coffee. And to make it through the afternoon, sometimes, not always, I will drink something else, but I know it's not the best recipe. I know that I need the rest. I mean, really, for me, if I don't get 8 hours at my age, I'm toast the next day, really. So in Exodus 20, verse 11 in the NIV, it says, "For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." Well, we know that verse, but the reason he did that, this part of the Ten Commandments provides the basis for that Sabbath rest, right? It points to God's own rest after creating the world. So why would God need to rest, right? Isn't he almighty? Isn't he all powerful? Isn't he omnipotent and omniscient and all that? Why would God need to rest? Why would God need to get his pillow and lay his head down and take a nap or to sleep through the night? Why would God need a rest? He must not have needed the rest because he was tired. There has to be more to it. Maybe he was establishing some sort of pattern for us. Maybe it's because, he created a daytime and he created a nighttime. What's the nighttime for? It's like, why are there seasons? Why are there years? It's like daytime, nighttime, light, dark. It's all part of his plan. He was showing us that we needed to work while it is light and rest while it is dark. That's the pattern that God created, and he was the example for that. If God was first to rest and he's our example, then obviously we should do it the same. So I want to wrap this up with just kind of a question. Are we living in a way we were not created to live? Is our lifestyle not sustainable? Well, I know mine isn't at times. I promise that there be a certain perspective on this particular podcast. And since I'm preaching to the choir here, I want to kind of maybe expand the choir and say, hey, choir, maybe you've never heard this one, right? The perspective I'm approaching is the arena of recovery. 2 quick questions. Number 1, this is for you to reflect. Okay, so number 1, how has your busyness caused you to struggle more with addictions? So whatever your addiction is, if you struggle with anything, whether it's pornography or drinking or, whatever it is. I mean, like, I'm obsessive with everything, so I struggle with a lot. But is my lack of taking time to rest, taking time to be in the presence of God, taking time for all this, is that making it easier for me to turn to my addictions to medicate the pain? Which is the second question, really. Has being too busy caused you to neglect your spiritual foundation, therefore making it easier to medicate? And guys, what is the solution to this? We all know what it is. It's slow down, remove stuff from our calendars, make time for God, make time for fun, make time for recovery. Make time for family. Make time for friends. Make it a priority to spend time with Jesus and perhaps listening to worship music on the way to the office. Whatever it is, whatever it takes. We cannot afford to be burned out. We cannot afford to be a part of that 75% of pastors who feel apathy, or 63% who are stressed, and 55% are filled. Let's be a part of that other percentage that is striving with success, but with God's work in our life and having that rest and having that joy in our hearts. That's what I want to be. That's what I want to be. And I'm sure you do too. Hey, thanks for listening to today's podcast on this whole idea of burnout and exhaustion and how to rest. And I hope it's been of any kind of beneficialness to you and, at least encourage you a little bit. And if it has, please like and subscribe and, tell your friends about the podcast. And, if you can provide me with any feedback on topics and on interviews and such, please let me know. Anything I can do to improve this podcast to help even one of you, I want to be able to do it. So again, thanks for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful, blessed day. God bless.